Thank you for that intro, Brock. Appreciate it. So good morning. Let me introduce Bee Cave Games. As Brock said, we were founded in late 2012, and we wanted to focus purely on casino games. Most of our employees came out of Zynga. I previously was at Zynga. I was the general manager on the poker product, and I worked with some people in this room on the real money gaming strategy that Zynga ultimately did not follow, but then did some smaller deals with BWin Party. We started with Blackjack on Facebook, and we're very proud of that game. If you like Blackjack, you should definitely give it a try. We consider it the best Blackjack game in the world, real money or social at this point. And we've gone cross-platform to mobile, iOS, Kindle, Android, and added slots late last year. And our game has really kind of taken off with slots and seen our numbers change dramatically with slots. And because of our technology choice with Blackjack being a multiplayer game, we were able to leverage that into multiplayer slots, which is pretty unique in the market, and then rapid-paced tournaments both on Blackjack and slots. We just finished the coding of our first real money game, and it is a Blackjack game for the UK. And we had many intersections with real money along the way. So the gentleman from Playtika this morning said that there is no convergence between real money and social. And I think that's true in a sense in terms of shared customers. And I think shared customers is probably single-digit percentages of customers back and forth in terms of customers. But the convergence points are not just customers. There's a lot of convergence points, and we're going to talk about that today. So when we go through and talk about RMG convergence to social, there's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind. You have to think of what is your competition doing, who is your competition, how do they approach the game in terms of fairness, how are you handling your fraud, your customer service, your responsibility, your collusion, all of these types of things that have kind of real money gaming lessons that can be learned. And then just how do you operate and how do you monetize your customer? So put together a very easy chart to follow. This one's, I started making this and I started drawing all the little lines between the boxes, and I kind of got lost myself a few times. And I didn't even have room to put everybody on this slide that was in kind of that second tier of the pyramid that Elad had up this morning. What you can see here is that this is an incredibly intersected community between social and real money casino. You have real money operators, you have online casinos, you have offline casinos, you have slots manufacturers, you have everybody working with everybody in the space. And I'd be glad to talk about this chart and go back to it in the question session if you want to know where any of these relationships stand. And like I said, there's relationships on here that aren't even shown. And then there are whole new ways to kind of bridge social to real money and make that relationship alive. So the first thing that really, where we started looking at real money, is it informed which game we were going to do. The graph here on the right side at the top is Nevada gaming revenue. So the Nevada Gaming Control Board is actually very public with all of their data, so you can go to their website and pull down all of their reports on a monthly or annual basis. And you can look at how Americans are gambling. Nevada is an excellent proxy for gambling revenue in the States, and obviously there's some international revenue there as well. 2/3 of the revenue is generated at slot machines or video machines. So video poker's in there, but it's basically slots. 1/3 at table games, and then at that table games portion, Blackjack was the largest portion in terms of footprint, and it was actually the second largest term in terms of revenue. Baccarat being the biggest, but that was really kind of a whale-driven game from international visitors. So for a variety of reasons, we decided to start with Blackjack. We decided it was the most popular table game for Western markets, and it wasn't as crowded of a market as slots. So we were not sure where slots would saturate, and happy to report, 16 months after founding, that slots is not saturated yet. There are newcomers coming every day to social slots, and the market just keeps growing and growing and growing, much like the slots market in the real casino on the Vegas Strip. So 60% of the social market is still slots. Poker has contracted a bit. You've seen some movement from players from Zynga over to other players like Fresh Deck and things like that. Bingo has continued to grow and done well. And then 5% is other. That's where we played. We played in that 5% other on the Blackjack for our first 12 months, and now we're playing in that 60% slots as well. Not surprising, and I'll share this graph on the lower right just to close off this slide, is our revenue immediately shifted to 2/3 slots, 1/3 blackjack when we launched those two things side on side. So it kind of goes back to when we started looking at the real money data from Nevada, and it seems at this point somewhat obvious that we should have started with slots, but we had a lot of reasons for starting with blackjack to build a multiplayer game. We're blackjack fans. We wanted to play a blackjack game that we thought was very, very good, and we've served a good audience there, and they continue to play and continue to be loyal and engaged customers for us. In terms of intersecting with real money in terms of fairness and how real money is regulated. So real money is heavily regulated in just about in any country where it's legal, right? So there's lots of gray markets, there's lots of black markets in this world where people will gamble online. But in terms of white markets where there is clear regulation, heavy requirements in terms of online and physical casinos, every machine that you've ever played in a Vegas or Atlantic City slots or even over in London is heavily tested, heavily regulated, heavily approved. Nevada and New Jersey that have now launched online gaming have kind of written these regulations on the fly. And from what I'm hearing, New Jersey's done a very nice job of it, and other states, as they're looking to come online, will adopt a lot of the New Jersey standards and New Jersey regulations. By contrast, social is completely unregulated. And there was a question in an earlier session about what to expect here, and I was just at another conference that we spoke specifically about this issue. There were 3 regulators up on the panel, one from the UK, one from the EU, and one from here. And the 3 of them couldn't agree on what should be regulated or how it should be regulated, or if they could regulate it, or if it's already regulated enough. So that should give you a hint as to where it's going in 2014. Likely no regulation there. And that's a good and a bad thing. I think it's a good thing for the video game industry overall because it's a bit of a slippery slope. If you start to regulate games that look like casino games, but you don't regulate all video games or all forms of entertainment that may have addictive qualities or games that are driven towards purchase from free-to-play. I mean, Candy Crush is a great game. It's also very addictive, and it also monetizes very, very well and puts opportunities for monetization. I don't see the UK casino gaming regulators rushing to regulate Candy Crush this year. Our approach was kind of an in-between, and we used real money to really inform our decision. We decided that fairness was very important. We decided that if people were going to be playing social blackjack even, and spending their real money to buy chips and play the game, that they needed to have a fair deal insured to them. So we actually went to GLI, which is Gaming Labs International, and they do all of the online and physical casino certifications, and they have very verbose standards. We took our random number generator and got that certified by GLI, and we're one of 2 social companies that I know of that did that and took that extra step. We use that obviously in our marketing, we use that in our customer support, we use that with our customers, and once people find out about it, it is something that they truly appreciate and point to as a sign of fairness in social. I don't know what other companies are doing socially. You're going to have to ask them as they get up here and present to you today, because I suspect there's a lot of stacking of the deck or forcing the outcome in terms of making people win in the first 10 minutes and then putting the pinch on really tight in the next 10 minutes. I expect that's probably the norm in social. This has been a little bit of a rocky road for us. We've hit some customers that have come to our game, and they bust out in the first 5 minutes and they tell us what crap we are and how fixed our slots are and this, that, and the other thing, because they're going over to these other games and they're winning initially in the first 5 minutes. We've pointed back to this certification, we've pointed back to this fairness standard. We added tutorials that were very clearly roped off tutorials that are not part of the gaming experience. But being fair and being random means that you're being fair and being random at all times. And that's kind of an important thing in real money that we've brought over to social. And in terms of that kind of responsibility and regulation, one of the things that will kind of keep that kind of at bay, if you view that as a negative, is really giving your customers control over how they experience your game. And I think this is something that, you look at World of Warcraft, you look at games that have highly kind of engaged followings. They've added controls like this, and we've modeled ourselves after this. And actually, responsible gaming is something that's in the UK that's added to real money games that we've modeled this after, and we've given people control over both time and money that they spend on our game. Much like the payer percentage is single digits in a social game, the use of responsible gaming controls is single digits. And we don't find it's our payers that use this, we find it's our kind of time-addicted players that use this control. So people that we've seen playing for 8, 9, 10 hours in a row have gone in and put these controls in place. And we actually, we've had a lot of customer support issues where people have wanted this type of thing, so it really prompted us to put this in the game. This was, to me, this is vitally important in the social casino space as that kind of regulation gap starts to close or starts to tighten up at all, that the industry is kind of self-aware and is self-regulating. Additional things that people in this industry need to do is you have to designate your app as 18+. You have to follow all the kind of platform standards, and don't buy ads for kids, right? Ultimately, they're not going to convert anyway. You're not going to monetize people probably under the age of 25 in this space. Most of our payers are 45+ in this space. So I think that's ultimately, this is something that where the two industries can really learn and work together in terms of real money and social. On the back side, on the back of the house, casino games are prime targets for fraud, for hacks, both on real money and on social. So I worked on Zynga Poker, and I can tell you for sure, we had 7 million DAU and 35 million MAU at the time, and we had a team of 12 to 15 people working purely on kind of customer support, protection, fraud, collusion, all of these types of issues, which in a poker game are much, much easier because of the transferable economy, and you can go and dump chips back and forth. But you need to have your game set up to handle this stuff, no matter how small you are, because people will try to hack your client, people will try to hack your server, they'll try to hack your traffic between the two, and you need to know what's going on. You need to account for this on the back end. So we built our back end fully transactional, which is a phrase that you'll hear in the real money side a lot, that you can account for every transaction that's going on in your game, and not just a purchase transaction, a bet, every chip at the table, every card that's played. So if anyone in here goes and plays Blackjack and says, hey, that dealer didn't have 21 and took my chips, we can go back and we can look at the exact table, we can look at a screenshot of the table, we can look at every card played by every person at that table, not only for that one hand, but for back to the start of time. Really allows us to kind of have full accounting when we deal with CS and dealing with our players. We've had to ban players for cheating and attempted cheating, and then that's kind of the sword side of it, is you kind of reach into your community and protect yourself. And the shield side is you kind of have to build in kind of automation and alerts on these types of things. So transaction velocity, if somebody all of a sudden is betting millions and millions of chips, play after play after play, well, that's not a typical behavior that you're going to see in our game. So we get a real-time alert on that, goes out to all of our developers, and we actually have kind of literally a bat phone that one of our developers must carry around at all times that gets the text alert to check things out in real time. So you need both the sword and the shield side, and this is terminology I learned from investigating on the real money side. This is something I don't think we would have done if we didn't have kind of that intersection of real money and social. So you then have a social game, whether it be a casino game or a match 3 game, whatever it is, you want to take it and operationalize it in a real money space. So here's the traditional option. You've got these big casino online operators here in Europe, Bet365, Gala, there's dozens of them. G2, all of these type of companies. You can go and you can get a publishing deal with them. That's great. They're about as good as publishing deals on the social side back in the States, if you're familiar with them. You're going to give them your game. You're going to make sure that it works on their platform, do a lot of special code, plug in all of your systems to work with their systems, give it to them, and then you've lost it. You don't know what's going to happen on the next step. They could put it featured on their main page, and you can make a lot of money from that. That'd be great. Most likely, it's going to end up buried on page 27 with 10 other games of the same genre, and with no real distinction and no real incentive for them to play it. That's what we saw when we investigated this option, and that's why we didn't follow this option. And you get nothing other than a royalty check every quarter back from these companies. You get no data, no customer touch points, no information. For us, it was really important that we understand the data and that we understand our customer in this space. And that's where these kind of the newer business models are looking at to kind of look at RMG. And there's quite a few of these companies now. Betable is the one that it comes to mind and comes up in conversation most. And I'll talk about Betable in a few minutes. That's who we're actually working with. Adobo is an interesting company. They're based in Gibraltar. They have an HTML5 solution, which is not our technology, and kind of ruled us out. If you have an HTML5 game, it's an interesting option. CashBet is a new kind of Betable clone. Gamblit is here, and they all seem to be interested in genres beyond casino. I got the 5-minute mark, so I'm going to go racing through these last ones. We're going to work with Betable. As I mentioned, it's going to give us a chance to kind of interact with the customers directly, and that's by far our biggest thing. We're not expecting big monetization of our Blackjack game here. As I mentioned, it's kind of single-digit percentage back and forth, so this is a new customer for us. We're really looking to learn and understand this market with Betable. Betable dev process has been excellent. The one thing I would give them credit for is that they understand game developers. They are in Silicon Valley. They are former game developers in many cases themselves, so they get it and they understand it, and they're not just these casino guys behind the walled gardens here in Europe. So what's next? Our game is actually in Apple's approvals, kind of languishing through that process. I had hoped to have some really early data to share with you, but we got bounced. Apple's very critical of real money games. So we're going back in with another submission and hope to take real bets this month here. And we're going to measure, refine, and take it to the next step if it looks good for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions in the audience?
Hi, I'm David Young from Blue Shell. I was curious about your experience with Betable. We're also in San Francisco, so we've talked to those guys. Specifically with regards to the Apple Store approval process, you were saying it was taking a little longer than you expected. How long and how many go-arounds, and what was your interaction with Apple like?
Sure. Well, our social game, just to give you kind of a baseline, is usually approved within 7 to 5 days.
Yeah, not too long.
Right. It was interesting. When you're a developer, you get a notification from Apple that your game has gone into review. Our real money game went into review, and then it sat in review for 10 days. So maybe it had a very, very thorough review. I don't know. I doubt it. But they reviewed it for a long time. It was closer to 2.5 weeks. And then we got the bounce message back that they had found some incompatibility and function type thing, and we were able to reproduce it, and we went back in, and now it's kind of sitting there again. Apple's been pretty standard otherwise dealing with Apple. Betable's been great. They're a growing company as well, so kind of all of their documentation is evolving, but now they've got stuff down to checklists and processes that are really easy to follow with.
Cool. I mean, I had one other question too, which was about table games. Given that you started in Blackjack, are you thinking about doing other table games? Is that something you'd comment on, or?
Well, Blackjack, we're big fans of Blackjack, and it does monetize well. So it's a good, diverse audience for us. It is a more male-centric audience, and it does seem to be a little bit of a higher monetizing audience, but it's a smaller audience. I think we're going to look at other table games and other games in general this year to round out kind of our casino offering. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You stole my question. I was going to ask about the Apple experience as well. Just maybe another question on convergence. Do you plan to actually market to any of your existing social customers and let them know they have a real money app out there? And do you have any expectations that you'll convert some of those players?
That's a good question, and yes, we certainly will. Since we are going to be kind of ring-fenced UK, and be very clear, we have about 15 to 20% of our DAUs in the UK, and so we'll let them know we have a real money Blackjack game available, but again, I expect single-digit conversion at best, and we're going to kind of cross-market to our social game in the real money space, given that it's in the Apple App Store, but again, I expect that path to be single-digit as well.
Any other questions? If no other, I'll go ahead and ask one last one. What's next on the product development slate? You guys have synchronous games, multiplayer. Naturally, poker and bingo, I would think, would be on your list of development priorities.
That would be a safe assumption. You know, I think we built a multiplayer synchronous technology, so we're going to leverage that. But right now, our focus is getting more slots content out. So we're going to build more of our own. We've got 7 of our own out now. Got another 7 in the pipeline. As Elad from Playtika mentioned, content is kind of important in the slots category. We've also signed a land manufacturer to bring us more content. We'll announce that as soon as we launch the first one in about 6 to 8 weeks. And of course, Brock, we're going to look at Bitcoin.
Good. And what you have a thought on mashups, and seeing as some people have said they don't work and some kind of want to focus on emerging content?
Mashups are of interest to us. I think this is an interesting space where normally IP is not really a concern in the social gaming space, but if you are inventing a new mashup, you want to be really careful in protecting that IP and making sure that you've taken kind of the trademark patent protection route, because if you've got a hit, the next thing that's going to happen is people are going to clone it and bring things out to market very, very quickly if you don't. And then if you have something that is a hit and it is kind of a mashup that works into real money, then you've got a potential real revenue stream there.
Sounds good. Let's talk Bitcoin. Thank you.